What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel and thanks so much for tuning in. Today's video is going to be all about the drugstore, as you could probably tell by the title. I had kind of fallen into a rut in my day-to-day makeup. Not that I didn't love everything I was using, but when I find things I love, I tend to get in the habit of using them every day and sometimes in the same way. And so as I was going back through my collection, looking for products that I wanted to start reincorporating again, I got on a drugstore kick and I started finding these products that were just reinvigorating my love for the drugstore. And they're really products that kind of make you say, wow, that's drugstore? So that's sort of the theme of this video, but basically it's a full face of drugstore products. So if you want to see that, let's go ahead and dive in. Okay, so first I am starting with some glow with the L'Oreal Visible Lift Luminous Serum Tint. I am using this today not only as a sort of primer, but also as a moisturizer. Even though I'm going in with what you'll see is a matte foundation, I do still want some glow, and my skin has been needing some extra hydration and illumination lately because I've been using this three-step like graduated program from Beauty Bio. They have like a retinol resurfacing regimen routine that they sent me, and I'm on the second step of it, so it's like the next step up in terms of strength from the base, and I'm noticing a huge difference in like how refined my pores look, the clarity of my skin. A lot of my breakouts have cleared up, but especially as the weather has cooled down, it's like in the 40s and pretty brisk down here, even in Texas, my skin's gotten really dry. So I have been amping up not only my daily skincare routine, but also looking for ways to incorporate some glow into my makeup as well. So that is why I reached for this. And it is very, I'm gonna put some more on. You really can't go too overboard with this. This is so similar, and a lot of other drugstore products like this are very similar to something like a Charlotte Tilbury Hollywood Flawless Filter sort of primer. Absolutely love this, but it's very similar, if not identical, to the L'Oreal Visible Lift. The only thing that I have found with some of these, like L'Oreal has some other, I believe it's L'Oreal and maybe Maybelline have some like this. Some of them are more pearlescent. They have a little bit more of a stronger pigment or tint to it, and so there's one that I have that's like a pearlescent pink kind of situation, and I do notice that when I layer the product up too much, I can see pink streaks across my skin, and that is something that I've never encountered with the Charlotte Tilbury, but I have never experienced that with this one from L'Oreal, which the shade, by the way, is 803 Gold. So now let's move on to foundation. I am going to use the LA Girl Pro Matte HD High Definition Long Wear Matte Foundation, and mine is in the shade Soft Beige. At least I hope it's still my shade based on when I last used this. LA Girl is always a good drugstore brand to look at when you're looking for like pretty good quality drugstore items. I recently, well, probably not too recently at this point, did a full face of new LA Girl stuff that I was trying, and there wasn't a whole lot in there that I was disappointed with. So I don't have too many of their products in this particular video, but I will link that video down below if you want to go check it out, because there are some real winners in that collection. I'm so glad I put on that extra layer of moisturizer beforehand though, because I can see like around my nose is one of the driest parts of my face right now, and even though I put that primer on and have been moisturizing like crazy, you can still see a little bit of the texture of this foundation is sticking to tougher, drier spots like that around my face. But otherwise, it looks really good. So this foundation turned out to be a pretty good shade match, and one of the reasons why I like it is it's a good foundation for being not only matte, but full coverage. Sometimes I find that with matte foundations, if you really do build them to the full coverage that they say they are supposed to be, they just look dry and cakey and crepey around your eye area, and this is a pretty layerable foundation without encountering any of that. Now for concealer, I'm going in with one that is relatively new to me, but so far I really like it. It's the L'Oreal True Match Eye Cream in a Concealer with Hyaluronic Acid, and I'm reaching for this one in particular because it, as the name suggests, it is a very hydrating concealer, and like I said, I'm looking for all the help in the hydration department I can get. And my shade in this, by the way, is W34 Light. Something I've found actually while trying this new, to me, concealer out from L'Oreal is that I really like how it pairs with more matte foundations. I find that I can get away with a more matte finish on the rest of my face if I put something more hydrating in my eye area to just really help plump any of those fine lines. It avoids any foundation that's laying there from looking too cakey or crepey, and the subtle, like the illumination that's naturally in a concealer like this just brightens up the eye area, and I think detracts from any dryness that might be there from the foundation before. So hot tip, if you love the finish of a matte foundation on the rest of your face but just find it's not working in your eye area, pair it with a more hydrating concealer. Now I want to set all this, and for that I am pulling out an old favorite. This is the NYX High Glass Finishing Powder, and this in the shade Light. I don't know that there's any other shade besides Light, but it's relatively transparent, mostly just gives you a gorgeous glow. And this I talked about when I did a whole video rounding up my favorite illuminating finishing powders. This is such a winner because it's not only affordable from the drugstore, but it's also pressed, and you can't find that a whole lot from the drugstore. There are some instances where they say they're like highlighting, finishing, or setting powders, but they are not glowy at all. I don't know what about them is supposed to be highlighting, but it's nothing like this. This gives you like, I mean, glass skin, like a truly lit from within, all over glowy effect. And it sets your makeup, which is what we're after. So now that we're zoomed in a little bit, let's start on the eyes. The eyeshadow palette I picked, it was kind of hard. As I was going through all of the drugstore palettes I have, they've been getting good for the past few years, but I landed on this one from Revlon. It is one of their Color Stay Lookbooks palette in the shade Selection Maverick. It's like a pretty rusty peachy sort of situation. They're like the perfect little pocket palette. The one thing that I don't love about them is how narrow the strips are. Like, it can be hard to get a full-size brush in one of these things, but I think it's worth making do because the shadows themselves are pretty high quality. So first I'm starting off with a mid-tone matte bronzy or like coppery brown shade. I'm using an e.l.f., what is this? A crease brush from e.l.f. to run that starting at the outermost part of my crease because that's where I want the most pigment from this, and then blending it in towards my inner corner. Still through my crease, and then as you can see a little bit on my lid, like the outer third of my lid as well. And I guess now that I look, I am pulling that pretty far into my inner corner, really defining that part of my eye too. Then with the bronze shade that is really right next to the one I just picked up, I'm taking, again, a brush from e.l.f. This is the blending brush, and I'm patting that all over my lid. I meant to kind of keep this look less smoky because I have a bunch of lipsticks, a ton of different shades from Wet n Wild that I want to swatch after this, but this'll do. Or I might just have to lighten it up with something else hiding in this palette. With this same brush, by the way, it's a little bit tapered on the end, so I'm taking the shade that I'd put in my crease at first, and I'm running that along my lower lash line for some symmetry and to smoke it out a little bit. Now going back in with that crease brush, I'm taking the lightest shade in this palette, and I'm highlighting my brow bone, but also blending it down into that crease shade to make sure I don't have any harsh edges coming out of my crease. And again, just to lighten and brighten this look up a little bit, I am taking the gold, the light gold, right next to the lightest shade I just applied to my brow bone, and I'm applying that starting in my inner corner and blending it into the center of my lid, which is adding a little bit, yeah, more of a light. Thank you, sir. It's adding a little bit more of a light reflective effect to some parts of my lid. Just lightening it up a little bit. So this is where I'm calling it quits with the shadows. For mascara, I'm going to use the L'Oreal Air Volume Mega Mascara. This I have an entirely separate review on, and long story short, I really like it. It's another great one from L'Oreal, the first one I ever loved, like really, really long-term love from them being Lash Paradise, and this is definitely up there in terms of my favorite. So this is after like a coat and a half versus nothing. Love it. Ooh, now before I forget about them, let's do the brows real quick. I have for so long loved the CoverGirl Ultra Fine and Defined Brow Pencil in the shade Soft Brown, or even Dark Brown sometimes works for me. I am just about out of this though, so I might only make it through one brow before I have to get onto another product. But this is just such a great little pencil for making strokes that look just like hair. Because it is so thin, you can really fill and like quickly fill in the shape of your brows, and yet it doesn't look like you've taken a giant magic marker and just run it through your brows. You can get fine, thin little strokes in there, so it looks relatively natural Actually very natural, but just in a hurry. Now for the rest of the face, I have two Wet n Wild favorites. The first one, we go way back. This so much so that I don't even know what this is. I think it was called the Color Icon Bronzer, and the shade that I use is Sunset Striptease. It's like kind of a matte, mostly a little bit of a satin sort of bronzer. And this is a Real Techniques brush, by the way. It's the RT203 that I'm just going to use to really lightly bronze and slightly contour the hollows of my cheeks and a little bit of my temple along the hairline too. Then for blush, this is a new love from Wet n Wild. It is their Hello Halo Blush Lighter, new to me anyway. They sent me the 3 color combos they have, and the one that I want to use today is I Met Someone, which is kind of a super soft peachy pink with a very strong gold shift to it. Really, this is like a highlighter, and a highlighter that's also kind of a blush is what these are. So I'm just taking, this is a highlighter brush from e.l.f. as well, and I'm really applying that very liberally because it is a very light blush tone. So I find I really have to layer it up to get any sort of pigment there, but with the layering of the pigment, you definitely get a lot of the glow with it as well, which is why, even though, like I said, comes with a highlighter, it's really like having 2 highlighters in a pan because the blush is so glowy. Moving on to lips, this is such an amazing formula. It is basically the formula from Revlon that replaced lip butters, and it is like a lip butter, but better. These are the super lustrous, I think they're called melting glass lipsticks, and the shade that is literally always in front of me when I am getting ready is this one. It's Glossed Up Rose, and it goes with everything. It's not a particularly cool rose, so I find it is really versatile even with a warm look like this. It doesn't lean so cool that the two don't go together, you know? So yeah, this is just such a go-to shade for me, an amazing formula for me. I actually just ran out of the clear one of these. That is one that I popped in my purse, and I'm down to just the tiniest little bit. So that shade I will absolutely be repurchasing because it is such an amazing, easy to apply and hydrating formula to always have on hand in your purse. That is the conclusion of this all drugstore face. What do we have, like 10 or 11 products, 11-ish products that will make you say, high-end who? Who needs your luxury makeup? I mean, nothing against luxury makeup, I absolutely love it. But this face, aside from being incredibly well lit, maybe too well lit, is that a thing? I don't know. Aside from being able to land a commercial airliner at night, this, I would say, is a 10 out of 10 drugstore look. So, would love to hear your thoughts about your favorite drugstore products, what you think of these drugstore products. Let us all know down in the comment section below. Besides that, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in the next video.